Welcome to English Speak Pulse. I'm Danielle, and today we're diving into something every English learner thinks they're doing right, but almost no one actually masters. The daily habits that make your English sound clearer, smoother, and instantly more understandable.
And I'm Sarah here to guide you through the speaking habits that native speakers use naturally. The habits that make their English sound confident even when they're using simple words. The best part? You can start using these habits today.
Here's the surprising thing: most learners focus on vocabulary and grammar, but still struggle to speak clearly. Why? Because clarity doesn't come from big words. It comes from habits. Specific daily habits that shape the way you think, listen, and express yourself.
And the moment you hear these habits, you'll realize something shocking. You haven't been speaking wrong. You've just been practicing the wrong way. That's why you hesitate. That's why your sentences break. That's why people sometimes say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?"
And here's something important. Every habit we share today builds on the previous one. Miss even 1 minute, and you'll miss the key habit that could take your English from understandable to crystal clear.
So let me ask you this. Do you want to speak English more clearly? Or do you want to keep using the habits that are holding your fluency back? Stay with us, because what you're about to learn will completely change the way you speak English.
If you're learning English or, trying to use it in a professional setting, I bet this sounds familiar. You want to sound clear. You want your message to just land smoothly, confidently. But then the moment comes and she frees.
You hesitate.
Totally. Your sentences just fall apart. You end up rushing just to get the words out, and the whole thing feels, overwhelming.
It's an incredibly common scenario. And here's the thing that the research we looked at really brought to light. Most learners are focusing on the wrong thing,
Which is?
vocabulary. They believe that just having more words will magically lead to fluency and clarity. So they spend hours, on flashcards.
And yet they still get that deer-in-the-headlights look when the CEO asks a simple question in a meeting.
Precisely. The sources we dove into show the problem isn't usually about how many words you know. It's about the foundational habits, or I should say, the lack of them.
You're trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand.
That's a perfect way to put it. Shaky ground.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've pulled some incredible insights from material focusing on the absolute foundation of clear English speaking. Our mission today is to dig into those counterintuitive habits that really transform your speech. We're moving beyond just memorizing words and into real confidence.
And if we had to boil it all down to one single core idea, it's this. It's the non-negotiable truth. Almost no learner actually practices the fundamental habit of thinking in English before they speak in English.
That is a fascinating claim. Because the immediate reaction for most learners, especially under pressure, is just panic, right?
Total panic.
Their brain just defaults back to their native language, and you can almost hear that internal monologue screaming, "What should I say? How do I say it? What if I get it wrong?"
Exactly. And that split second of panic is what creates the hesitation, the grammatical mistakes, and all the unclear speech they're so desperate to avoid. Clarity isn't an external thing. It starts in your brain, not your mouth. If you skip that think in English step, everything else is just an uphill battle.
Let's jump right into that foundational habit then, because I think that translation process is so ingrained. Why does thinking in your native language, I think the source used Urdu as an example, and trying to translate it on the fly, why does that just absolutely destroy your clarity?
Well, what's fascinating is how the brain actually handles this. One of the sources used this great analogy of a mental bottleneck, or think of it like a super busy road during rush hour.
Right.
When you rely on translation, you're forcing your brain through this really complex, multi-step, high-friction process.
So break down those steps for us.
Okay, so first, you have the complete idea in your native language. Let's stick with Urdu. That thought is formed with Urdu grammar, Urdu syntax, maybe even cultural nuances.
Right.
Then you have to stop. Your brain hits the brakes. And you start this mental translation. You're hunting for the right English words, the right grammar, trying to figure out if an idiom even works.
And only then do you try to speak.
Only then. You assemble the words and then you speak.
Just hearing you describe it sounds absolutely exhausting. I can immediately see why the speech that comes out is so broken.
It is exhausting, and it's slow. But the bigger issue is that the structures from your native language often just don't map cleanly onto English. So if you translate word for word, the sentence might technically be correct, but it sounds weird.
Unnatural.
Completely unnatural. Or the tone is wrong. This chaotic internal process guarantees chaos on the outside. Huge pauses, broken sentences, grammar that sounds just off, and your pronunciation suffers because you're so focused on just finding the words.
So the goal isn't just to speak English words, it's to have the idea born in English. You have to bypass that whole translation factory.
That's it. Precisely. The clean alternative, the one that clear speakers use, is direct. It's English idea. 2 English words. Straight to speech. That flow is clean, it's direct, it's immediate. Clarity is all about organizing the thought in the target language first.
Okay, so I get it. We need to switch our brains from translator mode to native thought mode. But let's be real. Someone asks you a complex question at work. You need a second to structure your answer. How do you physically buy your brain that time without looking like you've completely forgotten how to speak?
This brings us to what one source calls the micropause technique. And it's one of the biggest secrets that confident speakers use, often without even realizing it.
A micropause.
Yeah. They don't respond instantly. They use a tiny, often very subtle pause to build the sentence in their head first.
See, I always thought pausing made me sound weak, hesitant. I think that's the biggest fear for learners, that silence means you don't know the answer.
And that is the myth we have to debunk right now. The research argues the complete opposite is true. Pausing means you're professional, you're calm, you're confident. Because you're taking the time to give a clear, thoughtful answer.
You're signaling, I'm formulating a quality response, not I'm panicking.
Exactly. It puts you in control of the conversation.
That's a huge mental shift.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do it? We can't just stare silently at the person.
Right. Awkward silence is, well, awkward. That's why the sources give these specific natural English starter lines. We can call them thinking tools. They create that necessary micropause and give your brain permission to think while your mouth is doing something simple.
I love this. So they look like filler, but they're actually functional. They're for mental preparation. What are some of the best ones?
Absolutely. So instead of that silent panic, you can use these soft starters. Casually, you might say, I think. Or, well, maybe. Or, let me see.
Okay.
In a more professional setting, you can use something like, actually, that's a great question. Or, give me a second to explain my perspective on that. Or a classic, here's the thing.
Using actually, or let me see, literally buys you a full second or two. And that's enough time to just confirm the verb tense or the structure of your first sentence. That makes all the difference.
It completely changes the cadence of your speech. These little phrases do 3 things instantly. They make you sound clearer because you've had time to process. They help structure your response because you're forced to plan. And maybe most importantly, they make you sound more thoughtful and confident. You're not just blurting out the first messy thought that comes to mind.
Let's talk about another trap that's directly related to rushing. This idea that fluency means speed. I've noticed a lot of really successful, clear speakers, they aren't actually fast talkers at all. So why do learners chase speed so desperately?
It's because they equate it with sounding native or being fully proficient. But the source material is crystal clear on this. Speed comes after clarity, not before it.
Right.
When you make speed your goal right out of the gate, you rush, you lose control, and the English that comes out is almost always unclear. It's messy, grammatically unstable, and honestly, it just sounds frantic to the listener.
And rushing can be a total disaster professionally. You rush, you make a mistake, then you have to stop, correct yourself.
Yeah.
Which takes even more time and just tanks your confidence.
Exactly. You sacrifice structure for pace. The priority has to be. Clear English is always better than fast English. Always. Think about people you know who speak English slowly, very deliberately, but you understand every single word they say. Even their simple sentences communicate competence because the message is just clean. There's no friction for the listener.
Speed is a result of experience, not the initial goal.
It's a byproduct. Clarity has to be the non-negotiable goal from day one.
This feeds right into what I think is a massive clarity killer.
Yeah.
Trying to say way too much at once.
Yeah.
Tell us about the one idea rule.
Oh, this is critical. Learners often try to bundle multiple ideas, reasons, and exceptions into one giant rambling sentence.
Why do they do that?
Because they're afraid to pause.
Wow.
They worry they'll lose the listener's attention if they don't get the whole story out in one single breath.
They're trying to prove how complex their thoughts are, but they just end up making a mess.
Precisely. They create these dense, confusing sentences that force the listener to work hard to untangle the meaning. The source gave a perfect example. It's this train wreck of a sentence. I go to market because I need vegetables, and also my friend called me, so I go fast. But traffic is big, and I am late to meeting.
Whoa. Yeah, that's like 5 different thoughts all smashed together.
Yeah.
My brain is struggling to even find the main point in that chaos.
And a native speaker just does not talk like that. They instinctively use the one idea rule. One idea gets one sentence. The next idea, it gets its own new sentence. It forces clarity.
So if we apply that rule to that messy example, it instantly cleans it up. It becomes something like, I went to the market because I needed vegetables. Then my friend called me, so I hurried. But the traffic was surprisingly heavy. I arrived late.
The difference is night and day, isn't it? When you stick to that rule, your sentences get shorter, your message becomes infinitely clearer, your confidence goes up because you're only managing one small piece at a time, and your errors just plummet. It's a simple shift that makes your English sound so much more organized and professional.
So that brings us from the why to the how. We know clarity is a habit, and habits need practice. The sources detailed 2 really powerful, specific daily exercises you can start using today. Let's start with the first one, which is kind of counterintuitive, the slow motion brain.
Right. This exercise is all about training your brain to slow down on purpose during practice, so that controlled pace starts to happen automatically in real conversations. The goal isn't speed or even sounding eloquent at first. The goal is just ruthless self-correction and awareness.
Okay, so you pick a topic like my favorite childhood memory, you open the voice recorder on your phone, and then you speak about it very slowly. The source says to speak almost like you're teaching a small child.
Exactly that. You're deliberately adding friction to your speech. You force yourself to form the thought completely in English, you pause, and then you deliver the sentence with perfect clarity, even if it feels unnaturally slow. And most people find this really frustrating at first because their brain is just screaming to go faster.
But that's the point.
That's the key.
So after you record it, what are you listening for when you play it back?
This is the part that really accelerates your progress. You listen for the exact moments where your speech collapsed. Did you hesitate? Did your grammar break down? Did you repeat the same word like and or so over and over? Did you suddenly speed up on one phrase?
So you're finding your weak spots.
You're shining a spotlight on them. It forces you to become aware of your own collapse points so you can fix them next time. Without that awareness, you're just practicing the same mistakes over and over, just faster.
That's a fantastic diagnostic tool. Okay, so if the slow motion brain is about deep diagnosis, the second exercise is more about quick control. The 3 sentences, 3 seconds routine.
This one is all about training planning, sentence control, and pace. You pick a simple topic, say, my opinion on remote work. You give yourself exactly 3 seconds to think, which forces that think first habit.
Right.
And then you speak exactly 3 simple, clean sentences on that topic. No more, no less.
The constraints, 3 seconds to plan, 3 sentences to speak, they force you to be clear and precise.
Absolutely. The limitation is the liberation. You can't ramble, you can't use complicated sentences, you have to get to your core idea immediately.
Okay, give me an example. Topic is the future of cars. I take 3 seconds to think, and then I say, I believe electric cars are essential. However, the charging infrastructure isn't ready yet. Government investment needs to accelerate.
Simple, concise, direct. That little drill trains planning, clarity, pacing, and flow. And the commitment is key here. The sources say doing this just once a day for a month will totally transform your clarity. It builds that mental stability and control. And we really need to connect all these techniques back to the emotional side of speaking clearly. When you actually start doing this stuff, the thinking first, the micro pauses, the one idea rule, you create this incredibly powerful, positive feedback loop.
Because when you speak clearly, even if it's slow, you just feel more competent. You feel more confident. And when you feel confident, you're less nervous, which means you end up speaking even more clearly.
Right. And this is critical. We have to reframe what we call unclear English. So often, it isn't actually poor English in terms of vocabulary or grammar. It's really a symptom.
The symptom of what?
Of pressure, of rushing, of nervousness, of that fear of making a mistake, of not giving yourself enough time to think. Unclear speech is basically a linguistic sign of a brain in a state of anxiety.
So the linguistic instability, the broken sentences, the wrong words, it's directly tied to the neurological instability caused by that fear and that pressure to translate on the spot.
Exactly. Clear speaking is emotional. It's psychological. The calmer and more stable your brain is, the clearer the sound that comes out of your mouth will be. All these habits we've discussed are designed to bring that stability and confidence back into the process.
You're replacing panic with a procedure.
That's it. You're replacing panic with a procedure. Think of it like building a house. If the foundation, which is your ability to think and structure a thought in English, is weak, I don't care how beautiful your vocabulary is. The whole house collapses under the pressure of a real conversation.
So master that foundational habit, and everything else gets easier.
Infinitely easier.
That's the key takeaway for you then. Your clarity begins before your mouth even opens. It isn't a gift you're born with. It's a habit you build through awareness and these specific practice techniques. Thinking before you speak is non-negotiable.
And while our transformation has started by setting this foundation, the journey doesn't stop here. The source material mentioned that part 2 goes even deeper into something more powerful, how to actually structure your sentences so they always sound clean, natural, and easy to understand.
Right. We've learned how to break down the big, messy sentences, but what are the practical secrets to building them back up so they sound polished and truly natural? That's something to think about until our next deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're taking aim at what I think is the ultimate fluency wall. We're not talking about just learning more English. We're talking about learning to use the English you already know.
Like a native speaker.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's probably the single biggest frustration for, advanced learners.
Right.
They have the vocabulary, they know their grammar, but when they actually speak, it still feels, a bit jerky or staccato.
Or like it's straight out of a textbook. And the big question is why?
Yeah, why is that?
And the sources we looked at, they explain it so well. It's not a vocabulary problem. It's not really a grammar problem either. It's a structure habit problem.
That's the perfect way to put it, a structure habit. Because clarity isn't just about pronunciation. It's all about how your ideas are arranged.
Arranged inside the sentence itself.
Precisely. Native speakers use these incredibly predictable patterns, and that makes their speech easy to follow, easy to understand, and, easy to respond to.
And we call it a habit because they're not thinking about it. They're not applying a rule. It's just automatic. So our mission today is to help you automate that same process.
Right. And without it, you fall into what we call the vocabulary trap.
The vocabulary trap.
Oh. Yeah, one of the sources, Daniel, gives this perfect example. A learner might say something like, yesterday I with my friend go market, but very rush time, so we late.
You hear that all the time. The words are there.
The words are all there.
But it's just a jumble. The listener has to do all the work to untangle it.
Exactly. Now compare that to the native version of the exact same idea. I went to the market with my friend yesterday, but it was rush hour, so we were late.
It's night and day. Same basic idea, but the structure makes it instantly clear.
And what's really fascinating is that structure is the skeleton. Vocabulary is just the decoration you hang on it. You could have amazing words, but with a broken skeleton, the whole thing just falls apart.
So let's fix the skeleton. Let's start with what the sources call the 3-layer sentence method. This seems like the perfect way to get past those choppy 3-word sentences.
It really is. So layer 1 is simple, the main point, your core message. Let's use an example like, the new project deadline is impossible.
Okay, simple and direct. But if you said that in a meeting, it might sound a little blunt.
Very blunt, maybe even confrontational. And that's why we need layer 2, the detail. This part explains or supports your main point.
So it adds the why.
It adds the why. So now we have the new project deadline is impossible because we still haven't received the final design files.
Okay, that's already a huge improvement. It's a reason, not just a complaint. But what's this 3rd layer, the one that makes it sound truly native?
Layer 3 is the softener or connector. And this is, I think, a cultural necessity in English. If you just state facts, it can sound like a command. A softener like actually or I think manages that.
It frames the statement as your perspective, not as an undeniable fact.
Exactly. So you take that raw idea, the new project deadline is impossible, and you build it up.
And you get.
Actually, I think the new project deadline is impossible because we still haven't received the final design files. It's gone from a complaint to a constructive, reasoned concern.
And we can apply that same logic with another system, the beginning, middle, end structure. It's all about providing context first.
Right. It's always.
Yeah.
Beginning, that's your context or softener. Middle, that's the core information. And end, the impact or the result.
Okay, let's try it. Say you have to work late. The core idea is just, I must finish this report tonight.
A bit abrupt.
So using the structure, you start with the context. I know it's late, but And the information, I really have to finish this report tonight. And you finish with the impact, so I'll be ordering dinner here at the office.
Perfect. In one smooth thought, the listener gets the situation, the reason, and the plan. That flow, context, information, impact, that is the sound of fluency.
So once you have the sentence structured, how do you connect them together so you don't just sound like you're reading a list?
That's where anchor words come in. They're absolutely essential.
I like to think of them as road signs for the conversation. They tell the listener, okay, we're turning here, or we're about to stop.
That's a great analogy. They're the glue.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful which ones you use. For example, starting a sentence with however is very different from starting with the thing is.
Right. However feels like a hard pivot, a direct contrast.
It is. Whereas the thing is, that's more like you're about to share some crucial background information, maybe soften a disagreement.
So let's run through those key categories for starting an idea.
You've got things like honestly, or the thing is, to add more information, also plus, or maybe a more formal, not only that.
Good for contrast.
But however, on the other hand, and then to wrap things up, you have so therefore, or that's why.
Let's use a real-world example to show the difference. Imagine you're talking about a coworker who's always late, but good at their job. The learner version might sound like, he is always late, he finishes work well, we should not punish him.
So choppy, disconnected. Your brain has to work to connect those dots.
Okay, now let's rebuild it with anchors.
All right. You could say, the thing is, John is always late, which is a problem. However, he always finishes his work well and on time. Therefore, I don't think we should punish him right now, although we do need to monitor it.
Wow. The vocabulary is exactly the same. Late, finishes, punish, but the entire feeling just changed. It sounds like you've actually thought it through.
You sound reasoned, organized.
Yeah.
And that same idea of organization is critical when you're telling a story with multiple steps.
This is the first, then finally clarity formula. So you're not just cramming everything into one long, confusing sentence.
Yes. This is gold for explaining any kind of process. Instead of saying, I check email and important messages reply and meeting prepare.
Which is a total mess.
Right. You organize it. First, I checked my email. Then I responded to the urgent messages. Finally, I prepared for my meeting. It's clean, it's logical, it's easy to follow.
A lot of people think fluency is about speed, just talking faster. But the sources all point to pacing as the real secret. And that brings us to the one breath rule.
This is so important. And it's not really about your lung capacity, it's about meaning. The rule is, speak one complete idea per comfortable breath.
So if you're running out of air, your sentence is probably too long and complicated.
Exactly. Or, on the flip side, if you're only saying 3 words at a time, your speech will sound really choppy.
Okay, so let's take a story about a frustrating trip. The learner might cram it all together like, I wanted to go to the hardware store for supplies, but I got stuck in bad traffic on the highway, so I missed the turn, and then I called my partner.
And I'm already exhausted just listening to that.
Me too. So using the one breath rule, you create pauses.
Natural pause points. So you'd say, I wanted to go to the hardware store for supplies. Breath. But then I got stuck in unexpected traffic on the highway. Breath. After that, I completely missed my exit, so I called my partner. Breath. That's why I was so late.
Every idea gets its own space. It's so much easier to digest.
And what powers this is a technique called speak in blocks. This is a huge mental shift. Native speakers don't think word by word.
They're not calculating grammar in real time.
No, their brains are grabbing pre-assembled chunks of meaning, phrases, blocks.
So instead of sounding like, I am thinking that, maybe we should.
Which is so much work for your brain, the block speaker sounds like. In my opinion, I think we should definitely try again on Friday, at the end of the day.
So what are some of those key blocks we should start practicing with?
Well, they fall into categories. To start a suggestion, you have blocks like, how about we? Or,
yeah,
I'd be a good idea too. Summarizing them, all things considered. Or, basically, you just practice inserting these and your sentences start to build themselves.
Okay, so this brings us to storytelling. To sound really engaging, you need to master what the sources call the zoom in, zoom out habit.
Yes, this is the natural rhythm of conversation. So many learners just jump right into the tiny details, and the listener is completely lost.
Right, no context.
The structure is so simple. You zoom out first, you give the big idea, the headline, like, the product launch meeting this morning was an absolute disaster.
Okay, now I'm hooked. I know the main point.
Now you zoom in with the details, the evidence. First, the client was an hour late. Then our projector failed, and to top it all off, we realized we sent them the wrong pricing sheet.
A true disaster.
And then, crucially, you finish by zooming out again with a conclusion. So overall, we've got a massive amount of cleanup to do, but at least we learned what not to do next time.
That is complete structured communication, thesis, evidence, conclusion, perfect.
So how do you practice this? How do you make all of this automatic?
There's a really specific, actionable exercise for this. It's simple. Speak 3 stories a day, 1 minute each.
And there's a strict rule. Each story must follow that structure. Beginning, the context, then the middle, the details, and finally the end, the result or impact.
And that structure, it forces your brain to organize the thought before you speak. That little pause is where fluency is born.
Right. So a story about work could be, my morning was total chaos. Beginning, I had 2 crises to deal with, and my internet kept dropping out middle. By lunchtime, I was so stressed I just needed to take a walk. End.
Or even something simple about home life.
Sure. I decided to reorganize my kitchen yesterday. Beginning, it took 4 hours, and I made a huge mess in the process middle. But now, everything is perfectly organized, and it feels so relaxing. End.
Doing that every day, that's what builds the habit. That's what makes these native patterns feel natural.
So let's just summarize this transformation. Fluency is a structure. It's not about speed. And clarity is a system. It isn't just luck.
If you really apply these habits, the 3-layer system, the anchor words, the 1-breath rule, you'll notice a difference. People will understand you more easily.
Right, because you're giving them a roadmap. They don't have to decode your speech anymore. They can just listen effortlessly.
So you've mastered the skeleton, but to get to that next level, to make your sentences flow like liquid.
Ah, yes. Then we need to talk about how the words themselves connect to each other.
That's right. Next time, we are going to dive into the linking habit. How native speakers connect words to remove that jerkiness, eliminate hesitation, and make their English flow like water.
It's the next big jump. So keep practicing those 3 stories a day. Your transformation is really just getting started.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a massive challenge for anyone trying to master a new language. And that's achieving that clear, flowing, native-like speech. For years, the common wisdom has been, endless hours of drilling pronunciation, repeating phrases.
Well, it's textbook stuff.
Exactly. And focusing on tricky grammar rules. But we're here to tell you that our sources suggest that focus might be completely misplaced.
It's a huge claim, but the evidence we've seen is pretty compelling.
Yeah, we've assembled material today that really challenges that fundamental assumption. Our deep dive is built around the work and shared journey of 2 people, Sarah, who's a guide in language acquisition, and Daniel, a really motivated learner.
Right.
And their conclusion is what's so interesting. That clearer English speaking is less about how much you practice speaking and everything to do with how well you practice listening.
That's the core of our mission today. We're looking at active listening not as some extra supplementary skill, but as the foundational engine, the thing that drives all speaking clarity.
And it all started with Daniel's big problem, right?
It did. The crucial insight he brought to Sarah was just how much mental effort it took him to speak. He was constantly translating everything from his native language, Urdu, into English in his head.
And that it kills your flow.
Completely. And that translation hurdle led to Sarah's radical proposal to fix the output. You're speaking, you have to radically overhaul the input you're listening.
The aha moment.
The aha moment wasn't just realizing the input-output formula, because that's pretty simple. The realization was that most learners are just drowning in low-quality, distracted input.
So trying to force high-quality output is just impossible.
It's never going to work.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. If listening is input and speaking is output, then the quality of what comes out can never be better than the quality of what you put in.
It can't.
But what does high-quality input actually mean? It's got to be more than just understanding the words.
Oh, it's so much more. It's the entire linguistic architecture of the language. When you listen actively, you're training your brain to absorb all the things that traditional teaching just misses.
Like what?
We're talking about the subconscious stuff, the specific pitch changes, how stress falls on syllables, the musical rhythm of English sentences, and critically, how native speakers connect words together.
So you're absorbing the whole operating system, not just the code.
Exactly. The emotional flow, the natural pauses, everything.
Now, Daniel, like a lot of learners, he was pretty skeptical.
You would be.
Yeah, he'd spent months on textbook exercises. He felt the only way to get clearer was to just force his mouth to move faster.
Yeah.
But Sarah knew the problem wasn't muscle memory.
It was cognitive noise, too much going on in his head.
So she set him up with this experiment, and it seems almost impossibly simple. It was designed specifically to break those passive listening habits.
But that kind we all have.
Right, where you've got some English audio on in the background while you're scrolling through social media or, doing chores.
The task was revolutionary in how minimal it was. She just told him, listen to native speakers for 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes only.
But there was a catch.
A huge one. It had to be with full, undivided attention. 5 minutes of absolute laser focus, high-quality content, zero distraction.
So the second his mind wandered, the clock stopped.
You stopped the timer, yeah. And 5 minutes doesn't sound like much, but if you've ever really tried it...
It's incredibly demanding.
It is. And Sarah's logic for Daniel was simple. Your brain copies whatever it hears. If you give your brain high-quality English, your speaking becomes high-quality English.
She was basically forcing his brain to switch modes.
Exactly. Out of hearing frequency and into processing frequency. When you listen passively, your brain just filters out all the subtle acoustic details that aren't critical for, basic understanding.
But that 5 minutes of focused effort forces the brain to process everything.
And the results were, they were immediate, but internal. After just 5 days, he didn't suddenly start speaking perfectly.
What changed?
His perception. He told her, I just realized English words sound different when I truly pay attention.
Wow.
He said, I can hear the music of the language. He stopped focusing on the meaning and started focusing on the sound.
And that auditory sensitivity, that awareness, that was the real first step.
That was everything. And here's where it gets really interesting. How does that shift in hearing physically translate into better speaking?
Right, the motor skills. How does hearing better make your mouth work better?
We have to think of it as neuro-linguistic mapping. You are literally building clearer neural pathways for sound production.
Okay, and our sources break this down into 4 distinct mechanisms. The first one they call pronunciation memory. And this isn't just about remembering how to spell a word. It's about creating a stored, like a sound map for that word.
Yeah.
Its ideal acoustic profile.
That's a perfect analogy. Think of it like a high-definition recording. If you keep feeding your brain a fuzzy, low-quality sound file, that's what your mouth will try to reproduce.
But active listening makes sure that input file is crystal clear.
So when your brain goes to retrieve that word to speak it, it's accessing the clearer, more defined model. The output just naturally gets better.
Okay, so the second mechanism is huge for flow. Rhythm repetition.
Yeah, this one is crucial.
Every language has its own cadence, its own music. Daniel's native Urdu has a totally different rhythmic structure than English. So his mouth automatically wants to apply that familiar rhythm.
Of course, it's habit. But active listening forces the target language's rhythm onto your system. It trains your tongue not just in single sounds, but in the whole swing and cadence of a sentence.
Moving you past that slow, syllable-by-syllable delivery.
And into the natural conversational tempo of English, which leads directly to the third mechanism.
Native-like phrasing.
Exactly. This helps break that word-by-word translation habit because active listening teaches your brain that certain groups of words just belong together.
They're like single units.
They're conceptual and acoustic units. So you learn to deliver whole phrases smoothly, which makes your English sound, not broken. It sounds effortless.
And the final one, real accent influence.
Right. For so many advanced learners, their pronunciation stalls. And it's not because they can't physically make the sound.
It's because they can't hear the difference.
They can't reliably hear it. Active listening sharpens your auditory filter, and this trained ear is what lets you automatically self-correct because you can finally detect those subtle distinctions.
Let's focus on those for a second because they are so challenging. We're talking about training your ear to tell the difference between vowels that might not even exist in your native language, like the classic one, live with that short I versus leave with the long E.
Or ship versus sheep. A really tough one for many learners. And the subtle mouth shapes for work versus walk.
When you listen passively, what does your brain do with those?
It just filters them into whatever sound is closest in your first language system. It takes a shortcut.
But active listening forces the auditory cortex to register these tiny acoustic differences.
And it creates a brand new slot for that sound in your phonetic memory. That distinction is what finally frees up your mouth to produce the correct sound without overthinking it.
So once Daniel started perceiving sound better, Sarah gave him a practical training structure.
Right, she formalized it.
the 4-step deep listening method. This moves you from just observing into focused practice. And step 1 is listen without repeating. Now, why is that so critical? Isn't the whole point to speak?
It sounds counterintuitive, but it's so powerful. The goal here is to separate sound acquisition from motor production.
Okay.
If you try to repeat right away, you put all this cognitive pressure on your mouth and you risk just falling back into your old pronunciation habits. By only absorbing the pure sound first, you build awareness without the interference of old muscle memory errors.
I see. So step 2 is listen for emotion. This connects the sounds to a human context.
Yeah, you analyze how the speaker uses their tone, their stress, their pace, not just their words, to show if they're excited or annoyed, serious, casual.
And that's all about stress patterns, isn't it? English is a stress-timed language.
It is. If Daniel is just translating word by word, he completely misses the emotional weight that shifts the meaning of a whole sentence. For example, saying, "I need coffee," is totally different from "I need coffee."
The emphasis changes everything.
And only active listening really captures that.
Okay, on to step 3. Listen for connections. Connected speech. This is the reality of how fluent English is actually spoken.
This is a huge one. Because words in a real conversation, they're not isolated little islands. They flow together. The phonetic boundaries just disappear.
So this breaks the myth that you have to pronounce every single consonant perfectly.
Absolutely. When we hear "I want to blend into I wanna" or "let me contract to let me," your brain stops trying to process each word separately.
It learns that native speakers are just prioritizing speed and efficiency.
Which is why we get forms like "gonna" from "going to." Training your ear to hear these fluid connections is the only way your mouth can ever learn to reproduce them without effort.
And finally, step 4. Shadow for 20 seconds. This is repetition, but it's very targeted.
Short bursts.
You repeat immediately after the speaker, just for a short time, to feel the sound, is that right? To activate the muscle memory for the rhythm you just absorbed.
And the emphasis is on feeling the rhythm, not on being perfect. When you shadow, you momentarily shut down your first language interference, and you let that rhythm track. You just absorb, dictate your output.
And that's what Daniel needed to finally hear the native flow of a sentence like, "I think we should go now. It's getting late."
Right.
Most learners would break that down into 10 separate, carefully pronounced words.
I think we should go now.
But active listening shows you the reality. I think we should go now. It's getting late. That flow, that smooth connection, that's where the clarity and the speed come from.
This does raise a really important question, though. One a lot of listeners are probably asking themselves.
Which is?
If this method is so simple, just listen. Why do so many language learners still get stuck? Why do they plateau?
Because they confuse hearing with listening.
They do. And they are not the same thing.
So define that difference for us in this context of language acquisition.
Okay, so hearing is passive. It's just sound waves entering your ear. That's the primary function of your auditory system. But listening is active. It involves focused neurological processing. It means the sound is being consciously analyzed, mapped, and integrated into your language system.
And the sources point out a bunch of common pitfalls that keep learners stuck in that hearing zone, right? They prevent that essential processing.
Yes. Listening while multitasking is the biggest one. Or trying too hard to understand every single word, which just creates this stressful cognitive load.
Or pausing the audio constantly.
And critically, over-focusing on grammar while you're listening. If you're busy trying to analyze why the speaker used the past perfect tense, you're missing the actual acoustic information. You miss the tone, the rhythm, the connections.
So active listening requires you to just relax the grammar police in your head.
Let it go and focus purely on the sound profile. That focused, relaxed input is what leads to automatic clarity.
I do have to challenge this a little, though. Daniel's transformation sounds incredibly fast. I mean, he was already a dedicated learner. He was already translating everything from Urdu.
Sure.
How quickly can a typical learner expect to stop translating? Did his dedication maybe skew the results here?
That's a fair point. His dedication definitely accelerated the process, no question. But the core principle holds true for any learner who really shifts their input strategy. That magic moment Daniel had after 2 weeks.
The translation just stopped.
It just ceased. And that's the goal. It happens when the brain has received enough clean, high-quality input to build a strong English sound map that it doesn't need the detour through the first language anymore.
It can bypass the L1 intermediary.
Exactly. Daniel said, "When I speak now, I don't translate. I just follow the rhythm I hear in my mind." His clarity improved automatically. Not because he was forcing his mouth to make sounds,
but because he'd built an internal acoustic reference track.
One that was powerful enough to drive the output system directly. The result was English that wasn't just correct, but it was natural, flowing, expressive, and comfortable.
Okay, so for those of you who are ready to transform your own listening habits, Sarah actually codified her strategy into a powerful 10-minute daily routine.
And this short, intense burst is designed to just maximize that neural mapping efficiency.
It's simple, but it demands focus. So for the first 2 minutes, minute 1 to 2, choose a short audio or video clip, maybe 30 to 60 seconds long, something engaging and clearly spoken. Minutes 3 to 4, you listen to the entire clip without pausing. Just build that initial sound awareness.
And here's where the deep listening starts. Minutes 5 to 6, you listen again. But this time you're actively noticing the tone, the specific stress on words, the rhythm of the sentences. You're basically hunting for the music.
Then we move into practice. Minutes 7 to 8. Shadow the speaker for 20 seconds. Choose the most rhythmically interesting part and just try to feel the flow. No pressure to be perfect.
Right.
And finally, minutes 9 to 10. You speak one sentence from the audio, but in your own voice, and you try to reproduce that natural rhythm you just absorbed.
If we connect that routine to the bigger picture, you can see it's systematically designed to just dismantle the translation habit.
Which is the key to thinking in English.
It's the absolute key.
But how does listening for just 10 minutes a day stop me from thinking in, say, Spanish or French first?
Because that translation habit, it only happens when your mind has a concept it wants to express, but it lacks the immediate fluent acoustic pathway to express it in English, so it defaults. It takes the easy path through your native language.
Ah, I see.
Active listening trains your mind in real time how sentences are actually formed in English, which words naturally go together, how to reply with the right intonation, how to sequence thoughts smoothly. By strengthening that English-only pathway with high-quality input, you basically starve the L1 translation pathway.
So thinking in English stops being an effort.
And it just starts to become automatic.
This has been a really fascinating look into Daniel and Sarah's discovery. We've seen that active listening isn't just some passive study technique. It's a focused transformation tool. And it delivered more clarity and comfort to Daniel's speech in 2 weeks than traditional study methods had in 6 months.
The essential takeaway really is Sarah's final advice to him and to all learners, which was, if you want clearer English, don't chase vocabulary lists. Chase better listening habits.
Clear speaking is the result of clear listening.
Fundamentally, high-fidelity listening.
Train your ears to hear the music of the language, and your mouth will naturally learn to follow the rhythm.
And that leaves us with a provocative thought for you to carry forward. If the clarity of your speech is determined entirely by the quality of your ear, does that mean fluency is less of an intellectual goal that requires endless study, and maybe more of a physical auditory reflex developed purely through focused, high-quality input?
What source of high-quality English are you going to choose to train your ear with today? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling something that I think so many people struggle with, especially if you're speaking in a second language. It's that, that feeling that you have to rush, that speed somehow equals competence. So we're going deep on this really counterintuitive idea that the key to clarity and confidence is actually speaking slower. Our main source here is speaking slowly, the foundation of clarity. And it's fantastic because it gives you a real playbook. Our mission is to just, dismantle this myth that fast is better. We're going to use the story of a learner named Daniel and his coach, Sarah, to give you some really practical steps you can use today.
And that story of Daniel is so relatable. I mean, if you've ever felt like your brain and your mouth are just not in sync, that was him. When he first met his coach, he'd introduce himself, and it was just this torrent of words, something like, "Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm trying to get my ideas across clearly."
Wow, yeah. I can feel the anxiety in that.
Exactly. And Sarah's first observation was so profound. She just said his ideas didn't have space to breathe. And that's the whole point, right? If your listener can't keep up, the message is just lost. So the big takeaway here, the thing that grounds this whole deep dive, is that fluency isn't speed. Fluency is flow.
Flow over friction. I love that. It's such a critical distinction.
Okay.
Because let's tackle this head on. We're all conditioned to think the opposite. Fast English equals fluent English. Slow English. Well, that sounds weak or like you're hesitating.
It's a complete trap. And Sarah really breaks this down. She says that fast speaking is often a way to hide mistakes.
Ah, right. You just blow past them so nobody notices.
Almost nobody notices. But clear speaking, slowing down, that actually reveals your strength. It shows you're in control. And if you really listen to, effective native speakers, CEOs, leaders, anyone compelling, they don't just speak fast all the time. They use a comfortable pace. They use pauses. They use rhythm. Speed is a tool, not the default setting.
And the source points out that when speed is the default, it might sound impressive for, 3 seconds? And then
it just becomes noise. The listener's brain gets overloaded and just checks out.
Okay, so the diagnosis is clear. Rushing kills clarity. So what was the prescription? Sarah had something called the golden formula.
Yes, and this is so simple and powerful. She told him, just slow down your speaking by 10%, just 10%. And she promised his clarity would improve by 50%.
50%, that sounds almost too good to be true. But how do you even measure 10%? Do you need a stopwatch?
Yeah.
And I think there's a real fear, right? If you're in a fast-paced meeting and you slow down, aren't you just inviting someone to interrupt you?
That's a great question, and it's one Daniel had too. The 10% isn't something you measure with a clock. It's something you feel. The first time he tried it, he said, I feel like I'm talking too slowly. And Sarah's correction was perfect. She said, no, you feel controlled. And that feeling of control is what actually stops people from interrupting. When you speak with authority, people listen. They wait.
So it's more about perception than raw speed.
Exactly. And once you find that controlled pace, all these other mechanical benefits just start to click into place. It's not just a mind trick.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because the confidence part makes sense, but how does slowing down physically help my tongue and my brain?
It's all about motor control and cognitive load. So let's look at the first one. Your tongue has time to move correctly. Think about some English sounds like or the difference between a ship and sheep. They require really precise placement. If you're rushing, your tongue just can't get there in time. Slowing down gives it the space to hit the target.
Right, so you're not stumbling over your own words.
You're not. And second, and this is huge, your brain has time to organize your thoughts. Rushing puts your brain in panic mode. It's trying to find words, check grammar, and pronounce things all at once. That 10% slowdown gives it just enough breathing room to line up the next idea.
It's like you're stopping the mental fire hose. I get that.
Precisely. And the third mechanical benefit is you avoid mixing words. You know how fast speech can get messy and words just blur together? Slowing down keeps each word clean and separate.
Okay, so those are the mechanics, the production side. But what about the other side of it? The listener's perception, how you actually come across to other people.
That's where the other 4 pillars come in. Number 4 is that your accent becomes more understandable.
That feels counterintuitive.
It does, but when you slow down, you're giving yourself time to hit the right vowel sounds, the right syllable stress. It just polishes everything. And then 5th, I love this one, you use fewer filler words.
The ums and uhs.
Exactly. The S. Like those are just placeholders your brain throws out when your mouth is moving faster than your thoughts. If you speak with intention and use pauses, you don't need them.
And the last 2 are all about psychology.
Yeah.
How you look.
Purely. Number 6. You look more confident. It's that simple. Confidence is calm. Rushing is anxiety. And number 7, you just sound more professional. In any business setting, clarity equals competence. So Daniel's big realization was that by trying to rush to sound fluent, he was actually making himself sound confused.
That pivot is everything, from confused to controlled. And that really brings us to the psychology of it. Why do we have this impulse to rush in the first place?
It really boils down to fear. Speed comes from fear. Clarity comes from confidence. And Sarah breaks down 5 specific fears. First is just the fear of judgment. You're afraid people will get bored if you pause for even a second.
Yeah, that silence feels dangerous.
It does. The second is the fear of forgetting your words. You just want to get the sentence out before your brain, drops the thought. So you prioritize getting it done over getting it right.
And the third one, you already mentioned it, the fear of pausing. We think it makes us look weak, like we don't know what to say.
When in reality, a well-placed pause is a power move. It commands attention. The 4th fear is that pressure to sound fluent like they do in the movies. You're trying to copy this super fast scripted dialogue that isn't how people actually talk. And the last one is just nervous energy. Anxiety makes you want to speed up and it just pushes the words out too fast.
So if it all comes from fear, the solution, the antidote, has to be the pause. It really is the most powerful tool here. It's not just dead air. A pause gives the listener time to process what you just said. It gives you time to think about what you're going to say next. And it gives the whole sentence meaning, emotion.
It gives it structure. That's the key.
Yeah.
Sarah was clear. This isn't about speaking like a robot. It's about rhythm and control. She gave Daniel a great example. First, the fast version, which sounds like this. I think we should practice every day because English gets better with time.
Right. It's just a wall of sound. You get the gist, but that's it.
Exactly. Now listen to the clear version with control and a pause. I think we should practice every day because English gets better with time.
So much more confident. Persuasive, even.
That's the delivery that gets you noticed. That's the delivery that earns respect.
Okay, so the challenge is making this automatic, right?
Yeah.
How do you move from constantly telling yourself slow down to just doing it naturally?
That's where practice comes in. Sarah taught him something called the slow speech shadowing technique. It's designed to retrain your brain. It's a really simple 4-step process. First, you pick a short, useful sentence, something like, I need a moment to think. Hey. Second, you just say it, but maybe 20% slower than you normally would. You really focus on feeling the space between the words.
So you're focusing on the physical feeling of it.
Yes. Step 3, you add an intentional pause. Not a hesitant, but a confident break. I need a moment to think.
Mm-hmm.
And then fourth, you add a little emphasis on the most important word. You do that little circuit 5 times, and it starts to become muscle memory.
That's so actionable. And for anyone who needs a bit more structure, she also created a 5-minute daily habit plan. Let's walk through it. Minute 1 is just breathing. Before you even speak, just take a slow breath. Connect calm breathing with calm speaking. Minute 2, say one sentence slowly. Focus on giving each word space. You should actually feel it in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Minute 3 is all about the pause. Just practice adding a pause every 4 or 5 words, even if it feels unnatural at first. Minute 4, you read a paragraph from a book or an article, but your only goal is to control your speed. You just fight that urge to rush through it.
And then for minute 5, you put it all together. You speak one normal everyday sentence like, I'm working to improve my communication skills, but you say it slowly with control and pauses. And if you do that every day, it just becomes your new normal.
And what's the golden rule for when you're actually in a high-pressure situation?
It's simple. If you ever feel nervous, just slow down. That's it. The moment you feel that anxiety spike, consciously reduce your speed, your English, your grammar, your clarity. It will all start to fix itself because you've given your brain the time it needs.
Let's zoom out a bit then, because this is so much bigger than just sounding good in a second language. This is about professional impact. Why does this one change have such a huge effect on an audience?
Because communication is about being memorable, and people don't remember fast speakers. They remember clear speakers. When you speak clearly, you sound confident, you make your listeners feel comfortable, and your message actually has time to land and create an emotional connection.
I can see that for, say, a public speech. But what about a high-stakes client meeting or a negotiation? How does it change the dynamic there?
Oh, it changes everything. In a negotiation, rushing makes you look desperate. It signals weakness. But if you speak slowly and you use that pause right after you make a key point, you force them to consider what you just said. It projects gravity. It says you're thoughtful, you're in control of the situation, and you're in control of the outcome.
So it really applies everywhere. Boardroom meetings, customer service calls, job interviews. The source is so clear on this. Clarity is everything.
And that's what Daniel found. He said slowing down didn't just change his English, it changed him. He became calmer, more present, more thoughtful in all his conversations. It was an act of personal strength.
That's a really powerful place to end. The core idea here, the big wisdom, is that speaking slowly isn't weakness. It's a sign of confidence. It's wisdom.
Exactly. To quote Sarah one last time, anyone can speak fast, but only confident people speak clearly.
So we want to leave you with a provocative thought to take with you. Given that slowing down reduces filler words and makes you look more confident, what is one high-stakes situation coming up for you? Maybe it's a critical presentation, an interview, a big meeting. What would happen if you went in with the conscious goal of speaking just 10% slower? Try the 5-minute plan this week. Notice how it feels, and let that clarity redefine your success. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Welcome back. Today we are taking a deep dive into what might be the single most powerful habit for clearer, faster English speaking. If you, the listener, have ever felt that your English is slow, kind of stuck in a low gear, or that you hesitate all the time, this is for you. We're looking at that mental turning point that really separates the fluent speakers from the ones who just feel stuck.
And that turning point is something all the linguistic sources we looked at agree on, is the habit of thinking in English. not translating. Our mission today isn't just to talk about it, but to give you a step-by-step guide on how to actually, flip that switch in your brain. Because the moment you stop translating and start thinking directly, everything changes. Your grammar, your confidence, the speed, it all just clicks.
Okay, let's unpack that, because almost every learner starts out translating. It feels like the natural thing to do. But all the research says this is a trap, the translation trap. Why does it fail so badly?
It's simple, really. It's cognitive overload. Your brain just wasn't built to translate and hold a natural, fluid conversation at the same time. It's too much.
And it defaults to this really painful process.
Oh, it's agonizing. It's like this mental marathon for every single sentence.
So walk us through what that actually looks like inside someone's head.
Okay, so step one, you hear some English.
The input.
Right, the input. Then step two, your brain immediately translates it into your native language just so you can process it.
To feel safe, to understand it.
Exactly. Then step three, you think of your answer, the perfect reply, but you think of it completely in your native language. Step four is you then have to translate that answer back into English word for word.
And only then, after all that, you finally speak.
Step five, you speak.
Wow. I mean, just listing it out sounds exhausting. I can see why it causes so many issues in a real conversation.
Precisely. That's where all the delays come from. The uncomfortable pauses, the you hear. But it gets worse. Your brain starts to panic. You try to translate a phrase, and suddenly you realize the sentence structure doesn't match up, or you blank on a word.
And that's where confidence just dies.
It's gone. And that's also how you get that, wrong English. That sounds unnatural because the grammar is following the rules of another language.
So how do we stop that from happening? It seems like step two, that automatic translation, is the real bottleneck.
We have to train the brain to take a shortcut. We create a new, direct path. You hear English, you think English, you speak English. Zero translation. It's about efficiency, not perfection.
Fast, natural, fluent.
That's the goal. And that really gets to the core of why native speakers sound so, natural.
Exactly. They're not running through grammar rules in their head. They don't translate at all. A native speaker sees a dog. The thought is just dog. The concept and the word are one.
They absorb it.
They absorb it, and they think in it automatically. And the best part is, this is a trainable skill. Anyone can learn to do this no matter where you live.
Okay, so if it's not a switch we can just flip, there has to be a process.
Right.
We found a great framework, a kind of 9-stage mindset transformation. Let's start with the foundation. What can you do right now? Stages 1 and 2 are where you build your foundation. Stage 1 is super simple. Simple words. Don't try to think about philosophy in English yet. Just start with words you already know and apply them to what's right in front of you.
So when my alarm goes off, instead of my usual thought, I should just think, I'm awake.
Or you pick up your mug and the thought is, need coffee.
You're creating a direct link between the object and the English word.
Right. You look outside, you're like, it's bright or it's cold. Simple, direct connections. It makes the language real, not just a bunch of abstract rules.
Okay, so once I'm labeling my world with single words, what's next?
Stage 2 is small sentences. You start connecting those words by basically narrating your own actions in your head.
Like a little internal monologue.
Exactly. A silent one. You're getting ready for work and you just think, I need to charge my phone, or I'm going to cook something.
I'm running late.
Yes. All those little moment-to-moment thoughts. And the data here is pretty incredible. Even just 10 minutes of this a day can show real results in your fluency in like 2 weeks.
That's a huge return for just 10 minutes of thinking.
The brain responds fast.
So after we've mastered narrating our own life, how do we push that outwards?
That brings us to stage 3, observing the world. This is how you create your own immersion. You don't need to travel. You just describe what you see around you in your head in English.
So I'm on a bus and I just think, that bus is crowded, or they look very happy.
Exactly. You are forcing your brain to process the world directly through English, bypassing that translation step completely.
And this all builds up to the next stage, which sounds like the most important one.
It really is. Stage 4, thinking in English during conversations. This is the moment of truth, when that instinct to translate is strongest.
Right, because someone says something complicated and my first reaction is to break it down word by word. How do I start that?
You shift your focus from the words to the meaning. You have to listen for comprehension. If someone says, hey, can you give me a minute? I'm almost done wrapping up this proposal. Don't get stuck on proposal or wrapping up.
So just grab the main idea.
Grab the main idea, which is, okay, they need time. That's it.
So intent over vocabulary.
I can't say this enough. Translation destroys fluency. Comprehension builds it. If you get the message, you'll respond naturally.
Okay, now let's get into the high-pressure stuff. Stage 5 is about emotional situations. This is where so many learners fall back. The second you get nervous or angry, you revert to your native language.
It's a comfort mechanism.
Yeah.
And true fluency means being able to stay in English even when the stakes are high. So you actually have to practice your emotional self-talk in English.
That sounds incredibly hard to do when your heart is pounding.
It is, but you can practice it. When you feel frustrated, you consciously think, in English, this is frustrating, but I can handle it.
Or if you're excited for something, I'm excited for this, I need to focus.
Yes. You're teaching your brain that English is the operating system, even when things get intense.
Okay, building on that, stage 6 reveals something I think a lot of people miss, the idea of preloaded phrases.
This is a huge secret of fluent speakers.
Yeah.
They are not inventing every sentence from scratch. That would be exhausting. They reuse chunks of language, these ready-made phrases that just flow out.
It's like a mental shortcut. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Think of phrases like, here's the thing, or, I mean, it depends on...
As far as I know.
That makes sense. These little phrases buy you time and make you sound incredibly natural. You treat the whole chunk as one unit, one word.
I love that. So I stop analyzing, here's the thing, and just know it means I'm about to make my point.
That's it, exactly. And this leads right into stage 7, which is maybe the biggest mental barrier of all. Stop filtering your English.
The self-editing, that pause where you're asking yourself, is this correct? Is my accent okay? Are they laughing at me?
That pause is a fluency killer. It's catastrophic. Fluency isn't about being perfect, it's about being continuous. When you stop to judge yourself, you break the flow. You have to give yourself permission to just keep talking. Fix the mistakes later, not in real time.
So prioritize flow over flawless accuracy. That feels like a weight off my shoulders already.
It should. And all of this brings us to the most actionable part, stage 8, the cornerstone habit.
This is the 3-minute English thinking exercise, something you can do every single day.
It's a structured workout for your brain, designed to hit all these stages in a very short amount of time.
Okay, let's break it down. Minute 1.
Minute 1 is all about describing your environment. You look around and you just narrate what you see. My chair is squeaking. I hear traffic. The light is dim.
So you're activating that observing the world stage.
Right. Then, minute 2. You describe what you're doing or what you're planning to do.
Your actions.
Your actions. I'm drinking coffee. I need to send that email. I'm going to check my list. You're connecting English to your intentions.
And finally, minute 3.
Minute 3 is about your thoughts and feelings. This is the abstract part. I feel anxious about that deadline, or I'm excited for the weekend, or I need a solution for this problem.
You're tackling the emotional stage.
You are. And that focused 3-minute practice is, I promise you, way more powerful than an hour of just studying a vocabulary list.
Which brings us to the final stage, stage 9, which is really about debunking the biggest myth out there.
It's a huge one. So many people believe I have to be fluent first before I can think in English.
They see it as the reward at the end.
And it's completely backwards. Thinking in English is not the result of fluency. It is the cause of fluency. It's the engine. You don't wait to get good. You do this to get good.
So to wrap this all up, the main takeaway for you, listening, is that thinking in English is a skill. It's totally trainable. It doesn't matter where you live. This is a mental gym, not a geographical location.
And if you commit to this, even just for that 3-minute exercise we talked about, you will see a transformation in your speaking that no grammar book could ever give you. You're rewiring your brain's operating system.
So try the 3-minute exercise. Start today. Label your world, narrate your actions, and when you're in a conversation, just focus on the meaning. Stop translating.
Because once this becomes a habit, something really profound happens. English stops feeling like this foreign thing you're studying. It just becomes a part of you, another way you think.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we want you to just, for a moment, forget everything you thought you knew about learning English vocabulary.
Yeah, forget the flashcards, forget the endless lists.
Exactly. Because today we are staging what we think is a pretty radical intervention. It's a complete shift away from memorization and towards, well, systematic understanding.
That's the key. We've gone through all the source material in this, and our mission today is to give you a genuine shortcut.
A shortcut to treating English not as this, chaotic list of words you have to conquer,
but as a predictable natural system. That's exactly right. For so many learners, hitting an unfamiliar word feels like a brick wall.
Oh, yeah. The panic sets in.
It does. And you immediately reach for a dictionary. But what the research overwhelmingly shows is that the language, it really behaves more like a living thing.
A living organism.
It follows these clear, high-probability patterns. So our goal for this deep dive is just to give you the mental tools to decode words.
Based on how they're behaving with their surroundings.
We're decoding, not translating.
I think that shift from translating to decoding, I mean, that's the whole mindset change right there, isn't it?
It is.
So our immediate mission is to equip you with strategies. Strategies to understand basically any new word just by looking at the clues around it, the context, the patterns, the tone.
You're becoming your own automatic inference engine.
Using the intelligence you already have.
And we had to start with the most fundamental concept, which is context. It gets taught, but maybe a little lightly. Its power is one absolute.
So how do we make that tangible?
Well, think of it like this. Imagine you're standing on a busy street, and someone you're with says, "Wow, that place has the most inviting aroma."
Okay, so if I had never heard the word inviting before, I'd hear place and I'd hear aroma, a smell.
Right.
An aroma is usually something positive. And the context, place you could walk into, it suggests something.
Welcoming.
Exactly. Your mind instantly connects the physical thing, the place, with the sensory input, the smell, and the emotional function.
A welcoming feeling. So an inviting aroma is just a nice smell that pulls you in. You crack the code.
And I didn't need a dictionary.
You trusted the function. And that brings us to the core strategy we want to talk about. We call it the don't panic method.
I like that. It's just 3 simple questions that kind of activate that natural intelligence when you face an unknown word.
It's a checklist. It keeps you centered on function, not just a static definition. So when you hit a new word, you just ask yourself, 1, what's happening in this sentence?
A big picture.
2, what objects or feelings does this word seem connected to? And 3, does this word feel positive, negative, or, neutral?
Okay, so let's try it. Let's use a slightly more abstract word. You read this. The widespread use of the internet means that disinformation has become a pervasive problem. How do we decode pervasive?
You just run the checklist. The situation, it's about disinformation, the internet. It's a serious issue.
Okay, and what's it connected to?
It's connected directly to the word problem. And is it positive or negative? Well, it's clearly negative.
And the sentence already said widespread use. So pervasive must mean something like widespread, extensive.
Or deeply penetrating. The words around it gave you 90% of the meaning.
Right, but here's where I think people get stuck. It's what you call contextual switching. Let's take a common word like pressing.
Sure.
If I say, I have a pressing issue that requires immediate attention, the context is urgency, seriousness.
Okay, easy enough. But why does the brain sometimes freeze when you see that same word used physically? Like, the machine uses a hydraulic device for pressing the metal sheets.
I think it's because we try to hold on to that first definition we learned, the abstract one, urgent, and we try to force it onto the physical situation with the metal.
You forget that meaning in English isn't static, it's all about interaction.
The noun it's connected to, whether it's an issue or metal sheets, completely changes the meaning.
Urgency versus physical force. That's the takeaway right there. The meaning is fluid. It's defined by the interaction.
Okay, so building on that fluidity, let's shift from general context to noticing predictable structural patterns. These are like linguistic blueprints.
Exactly. And pattern 1 is incredibly common. An unfamiliar word plus object. The object is your reference point. It instantly colors the adjective.
Give us an example.
If you hear about a tenuous connection, even if tenuous is new, you immediately see a connection that is, weak, probably? Fragile.
Right, because a connection is an abstract thing, but you can imagine it being fragile or thin.
Or how about unfettered access? Unfettered might be new, but it's connected to access.
And usually means the opposite of something.
So you get it right away. It's access without limits, unrestricted. The object defines the adjective.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's pattern 2?
Pattern 2 is all about actions. It's a word plus action. This is where adverbs really shine because they reveal the emotional flavor of what's happening.
So not just how someone does something, but the intent behind it.
Precisely. If you read, the witness candidly recounted the events. You might not know candidly, but the context is a witness, a legal setting. It suggests honesty, openness.
So candidly must mean something like honestly or frankly.
Or if you see, they clandestinely met in the dead of night. The action is met. The environment is dead of night.
Secrecy. It has to mean secretly.
See? The adverb just confirms the signal that's already there. And that leads to pattern 3, a word plus emotion.
Where the modifier shapes or strengthens a feeling.
Right. We don't just have sadness. We might have tumultuous grief. Tumultuous combined with grief suggests a chaotic, violent kind of sadness.
Or on the other side, profound respect. Respect is good, but profound anchors it. It makes it deep, heartfelt.
In all of these patterns, your mind is looking for the relationship between the words, not an isolated definition of vacuum.
Okay, this is a perfect time to bring in what you call the hidden dictionary, and that's tone.
Yes, and morphology. But tone first. It's so often overlooked, but it can be, 60-70% of the message.
Yeah.
Especially for serious language.
It's the music behind the words.
It really is. Tone, pitch, pace, stress. It acts like a filter on the words. Take a word like inconsequential.
Okay.
If someone says, the error was deemed utterly inconsequential, but they say it fast, dismissively with a low pitch.
The tone itself tells you it means unimportant, trivial, even if I've never heard the word before.
Exactly. And the opposite is true. If an authority figure says slowly, with real gravity, the violation of trust is deeply regrettable.
That slow, heavy tone signals seriousness, a formal negative outcome. The seriousness is the main clue.
This is why just listening to news, to shows, anything is so critical. You start to rely on the musicality of the message, not just translating word by word.
Okay, and now for the other part of the hidden dictionary. This is the big one, morphology.
The architectural shortcut.
Yes. And we can't rush this because this is where the scalability comes from. We need to go beyond just simple prefixes like
We have to look at the high-utility Latin and Greek roots that unlock thousands of words. This is where you stop thinking of vocabulary as a flat list.
And start seeing it as an interconnected root system.
A root system. Knowing just a few of these roots acts as a massive multiplier.
So let's give a couple of key examples. First, the Latin root spec. It means to look or to see.
As soon as you know spec, you suddenly have access to this whole family of words. A spectator is someone who looks.
An inspection is the act of looking inside something.
Retrospect is looking back. And perspective is a way of looking at things.
One root, and suddenly 4 complex words are basically unlocked.
Okay, second example. Let's use the root OM&I, meaning all or everywhere.
Right. So you can immediately tackle words like omnipotent, all-powerful.
Omnipresent, present everywhere. Or omniscient, all-knowing.
And this is why English can feel so overwhelming, because it just recombines these parts over and over.
But once you know the parts, the word is never truly new. It's just a new combination of things you already know. You're free from memorizing.
That really is a radical intervention. You're bypassing translation to understand the machinery inside the language.
And that lets us move into more advanced territory.
Right. Starting with one of the most powerful techniques there is, especially in literature or high-level conversation, decoding by contrast.
This is the cognitive cheat code. It's when the sentence itself is forced to define a word for you, using linkers like but, however, or while.
Okay, give us an example.
The economic forecast was generally positive, but the energy sector remained volatile.
So the general forecast is positive. The word but signals the opposite for the energy sector.
So volatile must mean
unpredictable, unstable, liable to change suddenly. The context literally created the definition for me.
Let's try a more abstract one. His views were dogmatic and rigid, whereas his peers favored a more flexible approach.
Okay, whereas signals opposition. His peers are flexible, so dogmatic has to mean the opposite of flexible. It must mean he sticks to a rigid set of rules.
You use the contrast between flexible and rigid to define the unknown word. It's incredibly efficient.
And this also applies to that complex emotional vocabulary that's built on imagery, right? Things like, he was taken aback by the unexpected dismissal.
Yes. The physical imagery there of being taken or pushed back by the news, it immediately translates the feeling of shock or deep surprise. You visualize the emotion.
Or like, she gave a half-hearted attempt.
Have a heart. It equals a weak effort, an uncommitted effort. The metaphor does all the work.
So when we get to really complex scenarios, we're basically synthesizing everything we've talked about.
Let's use an example. Imagine you read this sentence. The Financial Committee expressed grave concern over the rapid decline in public participation.
Okay, to decode grave, I'm using all the tools. The context is serious. A financial committee, a rapid decline.
The pattern is word plus emotion grave is modifying concern.
And the tone you imagine is formal and serious. So when you put all that together, a committee is worried They're using high-stakes language.
Grave has to mean serious, profound, maybe even dangerous. You don't need the dictionary definition of grave as a burial place to understand its function here.
And that leads to the final layer, which is so beautiful, the subconscious power of this inherent imagery.
English uses physical pictures to translate emotion all the time. We don't just feel disappointment. We talk about a shattered dream.
And that word, shattered, it brings the violence and pain of something breaking into pieces.
Exactly. Or we don't just have a small amount of hope. We have a glimmer of hope.
Which is the image of a tiny, fragile light in the darkness.
And we talk about being anchored in our beliefs. That image of a ship held securely in place. It translates to stability, firmness.
This is really the ultimate level, isn't it? When your brain stops just recognizing words and starts seeing pictures and patterns.
It becomes automatic.
So to recap, we've basically armed you with a whole toolkit today. We have context analysis with the 3 questions.
We have the structural patterns: word plus object, word plus action, word plus emotion.
Decoding through tone and stress, the huge leverage from morphology and roots, and then the advanced stuff.
Analysis by contrast and by this functional imagery.
And what's crucial is that this is the same natural intelligence you use every single day in your native language.
You're just shifting that cognitive function over to English. The goal is to move from conscious, deliberately decoding to just automatically processing these connections.
So it really all comes down to trust. Trusting the clues.
Yes. Since English is constantly giving you these clues, in its structure, in its roots, in its tone, the only thing that stops you is that reflex. The reflex to freeze up and force a one-to-one translation.
Which, as we've seen, often doesn't even work.
The real breakthrough isn't about understanding individual words. It's about understanding the underlying rules of connection that govern all the words.
So here's the final thought. What happens when you trust that your brain, which has spent your entire life decoding expressions and tone and complex situations, what happens when you trust that it already knows how to live the language?
The answer is you stop studying words and you start absorbing the system. So go out there, observe, listen, read, and just watch how quickly this new ability becomes completely automatic. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just reading between the lines. We are trying to fundamentally rewrite how you interact with complex English. If you've ever felt just, paralyzed by a word you don't know in an important article or a conversation, well, this is for you.
Right.
We're tackling one of the biggest hurdles for learners: decoding difficult vocabulary. But we're going to forget rote memorization, forget the flashcards.
Yeah, that's not the goal here.
We are going deep on a cognitive skill called context mapping. And the promise here is genuine understanding without, ever needing to look up a definition.
It really is. Context mapping is all about moving from, say, unconscious guesswork to conscious observation. Your brain is already built to see these patterns. Every sentence, every social scene, it's all giving you these quiet little clues. We're just going to train that instinct.
So you're sharpening a tool you already have.
Yeah. Exactly. Our mission is to strengthen that natural ability of the brain to map an unfamiliar word to points you already know, the context, until the meaning becomes, well, not just obvious, but inevitable.
I love that idea, inevitable. It's like turning an instinct into a trained superpower. So let's see this in action. Where do we start?
We start with the most immediate thing.
Yeah.
Situational context. Imagine you're at an airport. You're stuck. You overhear someone say, "This delay is really unsettling. I hope everything's all right."
Okay, so I might not know unsettling.
Right. But, delay is negative. Hope everything's all right. Signals concern, maybe a little fear. So your mind just automatically binds them together. Delay plus worry.
And you get uncomfortable, worrying, something like it.
Precisely. It's an emotional calculation, and you've decoded it instantly.
So the definition just snaps into place. Now, what if I hear something different? Like, the whole situation is manageable. There's nothing to panic about.
See, now the structure itself is giving you the solution. Manageable is directly connected to nothing to panic about.
It's the opposite of panic.
Exactly. So manageable has to mean something like easy to control or within our ability. Your brain isn't looking for a dictionary definition. It's solving a little logical equation.
So the big takeaway here is to stop seeing the word as this one single barrier. It's more like you're consciously looking for the connecting strands in a web that's already there.
That's it, exactly. And we need to see how specific environments shape those webs, because words really get their personality from the scenes around them.
Okay, so let's dig into that idea, situational mapping. Let's say we move into a more technical environment.
Okay, like a cooking tutorial. The chef says, make sure the sauce has a consistent texture.
Right.
Even if consistent is a new word, you've got sauce and texture. It has to be about its physical form, so it points you right to, a steady, even thickness. The setting gets rid of all the other possibilities.
But what about a gadget review? Someone says, the battery performance is remarkable for this price range.
The word performance plus the money context for this price range, it tells you it's surprisingly good, better than you'd expect.
And this has to be huge in a professional setting, right? Where efficiency is everything.
Oh, absolutely. In a meeting, someone says, we need a more streamlined process to speed things up.
Streamline has to mean simpler, faster, more organized. The goal defines the word.
And then they say, let's avoid any redundant steps.
So redundant is defined by what you're trying to avoid. Unnecessary steps.
Exactly. And that's the key. This natural deduction, this is how native speakers learn new words all the time, not by memorizing.
Right, by just inferring from how it's used.
But we can sharpen this skill even more. We can move beyond just the setting and look at the logical relationships between words. Things like cause, effect, purpose.
Okay, give me an example with purpose. How does the why of an action define a word?
Sure. She whispered to avoid disturbing the sleeping baby. The purpose of whispering is to avoid something negative.
So disturbing must be that negative thing, causing trouble, making noise.
The verb avoid does all the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, what about defining a state of being?
How about, she spoke loudly, completely oblivious to the people around her.
So the action is speaking loudly, but the key is that she doesn't notice the effect. So oblivious means unaware.
Not noticing.
Exact. And the opposite of that, defining an effect.
He apologized, clearly remorseful for what he had done.
Yeah.
The apology is the action. Remorseful is the feeling that caused it.
So deeply regretful. And the word clearly just locks that in.
It reinforces that the emotion is the direct result of his actions.
I hear all this, and it makes so much sense, but isn't it common sense for a good reader? Why give it a name like context mapping?
That's a really important question. It is common sense, but most of us use it unconsciously. The problem is when you hit high stakes reading an academic paper, a legal document,
Right.
Your brain's first instinct when you see a word you don't know is to panic and stop. Context mapping is about making that inference process a conscious, trained skill. We're training you to keep your flow, to actively look for the clue instead of just giving up and reaching for a dictionary.
So we're stabilizing the instinct, making it reliable under pressure.
That's it.
Okay, let's go another layer deeper then. We've talked about logic. What about emotional clues? Subconscious stuff.
Emotional context mapping. This is powerful because emotion kind of bypasses the logical brain and communicates meaning directly.
Like in a movie.
Exactly. A character whispers, this place feels ominous. And you have the dark music, the shadows. Everything is signaling danger. Your mind feels it.
So ominous just means dangerous, foreboding.
Yeah.
The feeling is the definition.
Or the opposite. A character wins a great victory and says he felt invincible, like nothing could stop him. The feeling of triumph tells you invincible means unstoppable.
You can really leverage that with storytelling, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Let's use that library narrative from the source material. It's a great example.
Okay, so we're in this old, dusty library. The librarian points to a dimly lit corner and says, this section contains obscure manuscripts that are rarely read.
The clues are all there. Dimly lit, rarely read, hidden away. That tells you everything. Obscure means not well known, maybe hard to understand.
Then you get another instruction. These documents are extremely fragile. Handle them carefully.
The command handle carefully defines the state of the documents. Fragile has to mean delicate, easily damaged.
And what about the author's ideas were considered revolutionary for their time?
The key phrase there is for their time. It highlights a historical shift. It immediately tells you revolutionary means something new, shocking, ahead of its era.
It makes the learning feel like an exploration.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about mood and environment. What about the internal architecture of the sentence itself, the structural clues?
This is so critical. The sentence structure often gives you pre-clues before you even get to the difficult word, like a road sign.
Give me an example of one of those road signs.
A phrase like, the meeting took an unexpected turn when, the word unexpected signals that a surprise is coming.
Or, the atmosphere became hostile after, You know conflict is coming. So hostile means unfriendly, angry.
The predictability is very high. If you hear, he felt a sudden urge to apologize.
Sudden plus to apologize tells me urge must be a strong, immediate feeling.
Exactly. Or she made a conscious effort to stay calm.
The word effort there is key. The effort to stay calm means conscious has to mean she did it with awareness, deliberately.
Now let's talk about something called word clusters. This is less about grammar and more about cognitive efficiency. Think of them as words that are best friends. They always travel together.
And when you learn them together, they become one single idea in your mind.
That's the cognitive benefit, yeah. We don't process overwhelming and then pressure. We process overwhelming pressure as a single concept.
Like lasting impact.
Or genuine effort.
Subtle difference.
Vivid memory, learning them this way, it just accelerates your fluency because you're thinking in whole ideas, not single words.
And if that's a shortcut, then decoding through contrast must be the ultimate cheat code. It's so powerful because the word's meaning is defined by its opposite right there in the sentence.
Right, you just have to look for markers like but, though, yet. If you hear, he was calm, but she was agitated, the word but is a flashing light.
So calm plus the opposite. Agitated has to be restless, upset.
Or a mood. The day was bright, though the night felt bleak. The contrast tells you bleak is the opposite of bright, cold, dark, hopeless.
You can get really subtle with it. He tried to sound confident, yet his voice was tremulous.
The word yet introduces the reality versus the intention. So tremulous must be the opposite of confident, shaky, unsteady.
This all leads into predictive decoding, right?
Yeah.
Where the structure itself, the pattern of the phrase, dictates the meaning.
Yes, think about process phrases. If you hear, he ended up apologizing, that phrase ended up signals the final, maybe unexpected result of whatever happened before.
And it's the same with they wound up laughing. It's about the final state they reached. The pattern is the key.
Exactly. The pattern is everything.
Okay, let's take all of this and apply it to the really tough stuff, formal and academic language. This is where people get stuck.
But the logic is just as predictable, if not more so. Let's start with purpose sentences. Formal writing loves them. He called early to ensure everything was ready.
The purpose is clear, to make sure.
Or, she left quietly to avoid disturbing anyone. The goal is to prevent something.
So the link between the action and the goal is the definition. They worked overtime to meet the deadline. Meet means to fulfill the requirement.
And in this formal space, we have to lean on associative memory, connecting the word to a strong feeling or a picture in your mind.
Like the view from the mountain was but taking. Your brain just pictures stunning beauty.
Or if someone offers unwavering support, you don't just define it, you feel it. Steady, strong, reliable. It makes the word stick.
Okay, now let's tackle academic English head on. Data reveals a significant correlation between stress and productivity.
Look at the structure. Data reveals a thing between X and Y. That structure tells you correlation must be the relationship or the connection between those two things.
Okay, what if it's more complex? The proposal lacks substantial evidence.
Lacks is a strong negative. Evidence is what's missing. So substantial has to describe the evidence. There isn't enough of it. It's not significant.
And her findings provide a comprehensive overview of the topic.
Overview of a topic already implies a summary. So comprehensive must mean it's complete, it's detailed, it covers everything.
But what about the really tricky words? The ones that are pure structure, like albeit or notwithstanding.
Those are fantastic examples. They don't have visual associations, but they have a function. Albeit just means although or even though. It signals a small drawback. The study was successful, albeit costly.
You immediately know the cost was the one negative thing, a subtle contrast, and notwithstanding.
That's like saying, in spite of this. So the flaws were minor, notwithstanding the project's overall success. It tells you the flaws exist, but they don't cancel out the success. Understanding those words is about mapping the relationship between big ideas, not just single words.
That's incredibly powerful. Okay, let's bring this all home. Rapid fire context mapping. We're back in that cafe overhearing students.
Student 1 says, the professor's feedback was constructive.
And then adds, it really helped. So feedback plus helped means constructive is positive and useful. Done.
Student 2 replies, but his tone felt a bit abrasive at times.
The but signals a contrast, a negative reaction to his tone. So abrasive must mean harsh or rough.
The assignment itself is pretty straightforward.
The ease of discussion tells you? Simple, easy to understand.
But the presentation part looks intimidating.
Again, and the feeling of nervousness around it. Intimidating means scary, overwhelming. It's almost instant when you're trained.
And you can get so much nuance. A hint of curiosity is a small amount. Measured words are careful, controlled. The context is always giving you the answer.
So what's the big idea we're leaving with?
The big idea is that training your brain to see these clues, the situation, the relationships, the structure, the emotion, it makes decoding automatic. This is how you stop translating in your head and you start actually thinking in English.
Let's end with one last really rich example. A workshop setting. High-level stuff.
The speaker says, we often underestimate the profound impact of small habits.
The word underestimate tells you the impact is bigger than you think. So profound means deep, significant.
Then we encounter challenges that seem insurmountable. Challenges plus the word seem. It suggests extreme difficulty, impossible to overcome.
But with persistence, even the most daunting tasks become manageable.
The contrast is everything there. If it becomes manageable, then daunting must mean scary or very difficult to start.
And the final line, every experience teaches us something invaluable.
The benefit is clear. If it teaches you something, it's a gift. Invaluable means priceless.
So context mapping is really about the realization that the language isn't testing you. It's actually guiding you.
Yes.
The profound shift is seeing that even when a path looks complex, every experience, every new word you meet in context, it's teaching you something invaluable. So our final thought is this. Treat every unfamiliar word not as a roadblock, but as a clue, a necessary clue to a deeper understanding. Keep mapping those connections, and you will own the language.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something that I think almost everyone learning a language has felt. It's that huge frustration, right? The gap between knowing all the grammar rules and then actually trying to speak in a real conversation.
Mm-hmm. You know the vocabulary, you've done the exercises.
Totally. You can tell me the difference between was walking and had been walking, but then someone asks you a simple question, where are you from? And your brain just freezes.
And like an old dial-up modem.
Yeah.
That's the perfect description. And that freeze, that phenomenon is what we call the cognitive bottleneck.
Okay, the cognitive bottleneck.
And it's just so destructive to your confidence. What's happening in your head is your brain is trying to translate everything word for word.
Right, it's running this whole checklist.
Exactly, it's going. Subject, then verb. Okay, which tense do they agree? And only then does it even try to find the words.
And by the time you've built that perfect little essay in your head, the conversation has moved on, the moment's gone, and you just feel, defeated.
So our whole mission today is to just cut that process out entirely. Forget it. We're not aiming for perfection.
You're aiming for production.
We're aiming for production. We want to understand the system that fluent speakers actually use to build sentences, automatically, instantly, without all that stress.
So moving away from the textbook model and more towards a flow-based model.
Exactly. Flow.
All right, so let's unpack that. The central idea we found in the research for this is something called cognitive momentum.
It sounds a bit academic, but the idea is actually really simple.
Yeah, at its core, speaking is just about getting something moving, initiating motion.
That's the key psychological principle right there. Once your brain actually starts speaking, once your mouth is making sounds, it tends to keep going. It becomes a cycle.
A self-sustaining cycle.
Right. And the real danger is in what some of the research calls silent mind English. That's the state where you hesitate. And then every single second of silence just makes that fear of making a mistake bigger and bigger.
There's a great analogy for this. Think about it like trying to push a car.
Oh, that's a good one.
Getting a heavy car moving from a complete standstill, that takes a huge amount of effort.
A ton of effort, yeah.
But once the wheels are turning, even just a little bit, keeping it rolling is so much easier.
And that's the whole freeze versus flow idea. If you let that silence go on, your brain goes into freeze mode.
The fear takes over.
The fear, the translation, the grammar checks, it all just overwhelms you. Mm-hmm. But if you could force out a sound, any sound early on, you shift into what we call flow mode.
You're choosing motion over precision.
Motion over precision.
Okay, but I have to push back on that a little because I can hear people listening and thinking, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If I just prioritize motion, won't I make a ton of mistakes? Are you just telling me to blabber on even if it's wrong?
It's a fair question, but the research is really, really clear on this.
Mm-hmm.
The real danger is not speaking incorrectly. The real danger is not speaking at all.
Okay.
If you stay silent, you have a 100% guarantee that nobody understands you.
Right. 100% failure rate.
Exactly. But if you speak, even with a few mistakes, you have probably a 90% chance that they'll get what you mean from context.
So that completely reframes the goal, doesn't it? We're all taught that fluency means perfection, like getting an A on a grammar test.
But it's not. The real definition here is that fluency is just quick production. It's comfort. It's momentum, not accuracy. You have to be okay with being a little messy.
And that momentum is powered by something native speakers do without even thinking about it. They use these speech shortcuts, or chunks.
Yes, chunks. Fluent speakers are not building every sentence from scratch, word by word. They're grabbing these ready-made units of language.
So these chunks are like conversation starters, launch pads.
That's a great way to put it. They're pre-assembled phrases that let your mouth start moving right away. That kicks off the cognitive momentum, and it gives your brain a second to catch up and figure out the rest of the sentence.
Like a chef who has their vegetables already chopped, their mise en place.
Exactly. You don't chop an onion every single time you need one. You have them ready to go. We have common ways to start a sentence, common ways to give an opinion. We just deploy them instantly.
So how is that different from just memorizing vocabulary lists? Because that's what they made us do in school?
Oh, it's completely different. A vocab list gives you single words, single bricks. You still have to build the wall.
You have to figure out the grammar, the mortar.
Right, but a chunk is a pre-built section of the wall. The grammar is already baked in. You don't have to think about it. You just use it.
Okay, so let's give people some actual examples. Maybe we can categorize them, like opinion chunks to get your view out there.
Simple things like, I think that, or I feel like.
Or what about buffer chunks for when you need a second to think?
As far as I know. Or a great one is, well, the thing is.
Well, the thing is, I use that all the time.
We all do. Or if someone asks you something you haven't thought about, you don't have to just stare at them. You can use a chunk like, let me see, or, I guess you could say.
These phrases are like a pressure relief valve. They give you a soft start. Let's take a classic terrifying interview question like, tell me about your experience in marketing.
Oh, yeah. The non-fluent speaker's brain just shuts down. It's thinking, marketing, experience, what tense, past simple, present perfect.
And cue the long, awkward silence.
Right. But the fluent speaker, they know they don't need the perfect answer right away. They just need to start the engine. So they grab a chunk.
Like, well, the thing is, I started my career in marketing about...
Or to be honest, my experience primarily lies in...
See what happened there? By the time they finish saying that chunk, their brain has already found the next few words.
Digital strategy and analytics.
Huh.
They just bought themselves 3 seconds of thinking time without ever stopping the flow.
That's the engine of fluency right there.
And this connects directly to another tool that, professional presenters and actors use all the time. It's called verbal autopilot. Verbal autopilot. I like that. It's basically using natural fillers to buy yourself thinking time. Because silence, in a fast conversation, it feels like failure.
Yeah, it signals to your brain and to the other person that you're struggling.
So instead of silence, you use these fillers to bridge the gap. It creates this illusion of smoothness, even while your brain is working hard in the background.
And we're not talking about nervous, awkward fillers. These are functional tools. If you need, say, 1 to 3 seconds to think, you can say.
Well, let me think about that for a second.
That's an interesting point.
I'd say. And then you can pause for a beat after you say that.
Or even something simple like, hold on, that's a tough question. It just keeps the momentum going and never lets the car stop rolling.
But here's the thing. None of this works. Not the chunks, not the verbal autopilot, if we don't first defeat that little voice in our heads, that internal critic we call perfection paralysis.
This is the biggest roadblock, isn't it? It's that nagging voice asking, what if I make a mistake? What if they judge my accent? What if this sentence is wrong?
That fear of being wrong destroys fluency more than any actual mistake ever could.
We hold ourselves to this impossible standard. I mean, we think native speakers are perfect.
But if you actually listen to how native speakers talk, it's messy. The messiness is the norm, not the exception.
Oh, totally. I remember trying to order a coffee in Rome once. I swear, I spent 5 minutes in my head just trying to get the verb conjugation perfect.
What happened?
I gave up. I just pointed at the menu. The paralysis is so real. We need to just accept the chaos of real conversation.
Absolutely. Think about it. Native speakers interrupt themselves all the time. They repeat words. They correct themselves mid-sentence.
They use, constantly.
Exactly. Those aren't signs of being a bad speaker. They're just the lubricants of real-time speech. They are part of the flow.
So the mindset really has to shift. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to move. The second you accept that, you free up so much mental energy.
Okay, so once we have that mindset, that willingness to just move, how do we train the actual physical part? How do we get our mouths to move faster than our thinking?
This brings us to a really powerful technique, one that a lot of top language learners swear by. It's called shadow speaking.
It sounds a little mysterious, doesn't it?
It does, but it's all about muscle memory. It's very practical. Shadow speaking is when you listen to some English audio, a podcast, a movie scene, whatever, and you speak along with it at the same time.
Right. This is key. You're not repeating it after a pause. You're trying to mimic the sound and the rhythm in real time as you hear it.
Yeah, the best way is with headphones, so the sound is right there in your head. And you should start with something easy, like a slow news report or even a kid's story, just to get the muscles moving.
What you're training here isn't vocabulary, it's automaticity. You're training your brain to feel the rhythm of English, the melody of a sentence.
Where the natural pauses are, what words get stressed.
Your brain starts to bypass that whole translation center and just mimics the flow directly.
And the results from the research on this are pretty incredible. People say their fluency feels better after just a week.
And for those who do it for a couple of months, their actual thinking speed in English can double. You're essentially teaching your mouth to lead and your brain to follow.
And that speed is so important in those high-pressure situations, like at an airport or a busy hotel, where you might only catch half of what's said.
This is where we need to use what's called functional understanding through context prediction.
Most learners panic the second they miss a word. They think they've failed.
Right, and they go right back into that freeze mode. But a fluent speaker doesn't need every single word because they're using the context of the situation.
If you're standing at a hotel reception desk, the number of possible questions is actually pretty small.
Exactly. You're ready to hear things like checking in or checking out. Do you have a reservation? Can I see your passport? You don't need to understand every syllable. You just need to confirm the situation.
Or at a coffee shop, you hear something that sounds like, "For here to go." The context tells you everything. Your response is quick and functional. To go, thanks. That's flow.
Now, getting to that point, that level of calm confidence, it doesn't just happen. It comes from building small, routine habits. Consistency is everything.
So let's talk about 3 of those habits. The first one we'll call daily micro conversations.
And this is simple. It just means talking to yourself in English for 2 or 3 minutes a day.
Out loud.
Out loud. It's your internal monologue, but spoken. What am I doing now? I'm making tea. What do I think about this article? What am I going to do later tonight?
It's high repetition, low risk. There's no pressure. You're just warming up the engine every day.
The second habit is mirror speaking practice. I know, it feels a little weird at first.
Super weird talking to yourself in a mirror.
But there's a reason for it. It forces you to connect the physical feeling of making English sounds with the visual of seeing yourself do it. It makes you more comfortable with how you look and sound when you speak.
It removes some of that self-consciousness.
A huge amount of it.
Yeah.
And the third habit, which I love for maintaining flow, is object narration.
Okay, what's that?
You just pick any object around you. Your phone, a pen, a cup. And you just talk about it for a minute, nonstop.
About anything?
Anything that comes to mind. This is my phone. It's black. I use it to call people. I also check my emails. I should probably charge it soon. The content doesn't matter at all. The only goal is to keep talking, to not let the flow stop.
You're training your brain to just produce English without constantly searching for the perfect word.
Put those 3 habits together and the impact is huge. You're transforming your speaking speed, your thinking speed, your pronunciation, and just your overall resilience. You stop freezing and you start communicating.
So to bring it all together, the big shift we're talking about is moving away from that internal grammar checker and towards this idea of cognitive momentum. We've talked about the tools, the chunks, the verbal autopilot, and the training techniques like shadowing and these daily micro habits. It seems like the biggest leap in fluency really comes from training your brain for flow, not for perfection.
That's it in a nutshell.
And that leads us to the final thought we want to leave everyone with.
If fluency really is all about momentum, what is one starter chink or one verbal filler that you can commit to using? The next time you feel that pressure, that urge to translate in your head, what's the one phrase you can use to turn that silence into instant flow? If you're learning English, or, any language really, You know this feeling. I mean, you know it deep in your bones.
Oh, yeah.
You can pick up an article, you can watch a TV show, and you get it. You understand maybe 90% of what's being said. You're following the plot, you know the word.
You've done the work, right? You have the knowledge stored away. But then, the moment a real conversation starts and you try to produce that language to just respond naturally.
You freeze.
You freeze. Your mind just goes completely blank. And all that knowledge feels like it's suddenly locked behind a door you can't open.
That moment of paralysis is the huge gap, that chasm between what we're calling passive English mode, the understanding part, and active English mode, the production part.
And it is, without a doubt, the single biggest frustration for almost every serious language learner.
It's so fascinating because it just proves that knowing the language, reading the grammar rules and memorizing vocabulary lists, it's just not enough.
Exactly. Language, when you get down to it, isn't just information, it's a skill, a dynamic, almost a motor skill.
I love the car analogy we found for this. It's perfect. Passive English is basically like watching someone else drive a car really well.
Right.
You see where their hands go, you understand which pedal is the gas, which is the brake, and you think to yourself, yeah, I know how to do this.
But the second you're actually in the driver's seat, that instantaneous need to coordinate everything, checking mirrors, steering, the pedals, it's just overwhelming.
Your brain freezes because the skill isn't about stored knowledge. It's about instant, almost physical application.
Precisely.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. We're going to explore how to activate the English you already have. We've identified 10 surprisingly simple steps that move that passive understanding right into confident, quick production.
And this is the most important thing we want you to take away from this. Fluency doesn't mean you have to go learn 5,000 new words.
Right.
It's not about mastering some obscure grammar point. It's about flipping a switch in your brain to retrieve and use what you already possess.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the diagnosis. Why do so many learners stay stuck in that passive mode for years sometimes, despite all the hard work? What's the real problem here?
Well, when you synthesize it, the problem really comes down to 3 major issues in how we're trained to learn. The first one is just a profound consumption versus production imbalance.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I mean, learners consume English. They watch videos, they read articles, they listen to music at a ratio of maybe 50 to 1.
50 to 1.
50 units of consumption for every 1 unit of active production, of speaking back.
That ratio is staggering. And when you put it like that, it makes perfect sense why that speaking skill just withers. We're treating English like homework, not a performance tool.
Exactly. Then the second reason is the storage method. Your brain is storing English like it's a list of facts, like a bunch of dictionary definitions instead of a skill.
So if I understand you, for a native speaker, a word they need is right there, like an app on their home screen.
Yes.
But for the passive learner, they have to go searching through folders to find the file first.
That is a perfect way to put it. And we need to bypass that whole search process, which leads to the third reason. A lack of pressure practice.
Pressure practice.
Real speaking requires speed. You have to recall the language in real time. If you're always translating in your head or reading from a script or overthinking the grammar before you speak, you're not training your brain for the speed you need in a real conversation.
This all comes back to that one example, right?
Yeah.
You finish watching a great documentary, you understood every single detail. But if I turn to you right then and say, so what did you learn?
Silence.
Your mind just goes blank. The passive comprehension is perfect, but the speaking engine is completely turned off.
So the activation process needs to be structured. This is why we've broken these strategies down. Let's start with the first theme, training instant retrieval and technique. This is all about breaking that habit of hesitation.
Okay, let's jump in with step 1, which is all about speed. The 5-second recall method.
This one directly attacks that habit of treating English as just passive information. It forces you to use it immediately.
So the method itself is simple, but the key is you have to do it consistently. When you hear a new phrase, an expression, anything useful, you have to stop, recall it, and say it out loud within 5 seconds.
You're literally putting a timer on your brain. It transforms retrieval from a slow, thoughtful process into an instant, active one.
So let's use an example. Say you hear the phrase, "Can you walk me through this?"
Right, which just means explain this step by step. So within 5 seconds, you repeat it out loud. Can you walk me through this? You feel the rhythm of it?
But then, and this is the absolutely critical second part, you have to immediately create your own sentence using that phrase.
Yes, that's what turns it from just repetition into real activation.
So you'd say, can you walk me through this?
Yeah.
And then right after, something like, can you walk me through how this app works?
Exactly. That tiny little step of generating your own sentence moves the phrase from a storage file into your active production toolkit. Do that with just 10 phrases a day, and you're building incredible retrieval speed.
That speed element is also key to our next strategy, step 2, which is shadowing. But we need to talk about why most people fail when they try this.
Oh, absolutely. I know that feeling. You try to keep up with a native speaker's speed, match their accent, their tone, their rhythm, all at the same time.
And your brain just melts. You fall behind in 2 seconds.
It's cognitive overload. You can't do all of that at once. So the correct way to do it is to break it down. Listen to just one line of dialogue, then pause it.
Right.
Then repeat the line in your own natural voice. Don't worry about a perfect accent. Just focus on the rhythm. And then you repeat that same line again, but this time try to say it just 10% faster.
10% faster. That seems counterintuitive.
Yes.
Why faster?
Because the first time you say it, you're thinking. It's a cognitive exercise. The second, slightly faster repetition forces your mouth and tongue to take over. It builds muscle memory. It starts to turn speaking into a physical motor skill, not just a mental one.
I see. So you're taking the brain out of the equation a little bit. Let's stick with this theme of speed and jump to step 9, which is about training pure instinct. This one is called instant reaction drills.
The goal here is pretty radical. It's about prioritizing speed over correctness. You have to silence your internal grammar checker.
Right. So you give yourself a simple, everyday situation, and you just say the first English sentence that pops into your head. No translating, no debating verb tenses, just an instant reaction.
So, for example, the situation is, your phone battery is low.
Instant reaction, my phone's about to die, or I need to find a charger. It has to be quick, natural, instinctive. You're training that trigger.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because now we move into our second big theme. Shifting from storage to production. The first theme was about speed. This one is about volume and application.
And we're starting with step 3, which directly fixes that consumption imbalance we talked about. It's the output rule. 1 input equals 2 outputs.
The idea is simple, but so powerful. For every 1 minute of English you take in, say, you watch a 60-second video clip, you have to create 2 distinct outputs from it.
Okay, what are the 2 outputs?
Output 1. You summarize the clip in your own words immediately. This forces you to process the meaning, not just the words.
Makes sense.
Output 2. You take one phrase or one piece of vocabulary from that clip and you use it in a brand new sentence about your own life.
That's the key, isn't it? It transforms your brain from a passive storage room into an active factory, constantly using the raw materials it's given.
And that activation isn't just for sentences, it's for vocabulary too, which brings us to step 4. Activate vocabulary through situation.
Yeah, this is a big one. Learners memorize a word, like say assist, and they just store the definition.
Right. Assist means to help, but then when they're in a real situation and need the word, it's just not there. It hasn't been connected to anything real.
So how do you activate it?
You have to embed it in context immediately. Force yourself to use that new word in 3 totally different situations. Let's stick with assist.
Okay.
First, a work context. Can I assist you with this report? Then a shopping context. Is there someone who can assist me with the sizes?
And maybe a travel context. Who can assist me at baggage claim?
Exactly. By linking the word to multiple real-life scenarios, your brain prepares it for instant use. It's not a definition anymore. It's a versatile tool.
This is a perfect transition into our third and honestly, maybe the most important theme, mindset and daily integration. Let's start with a huge psychological block. Step 5, stop thinking in correct English and start thinking in usable English.
This is the bottleneck for so many people. They hesitate because they're mentally running through grammar rules, trying to find the perfect word. They're just paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake.
But wait, isn't there a danger there? If we just focus on being fast and not accurate, aren't we just going to lock in bad habits? What did the sources say about that?
That's a great question, and it's a real concern. The sources are clear. This is about prioritizing communicative fluency first. Think about native speakers. They prioritize simple, quick, usable English.
They say things like, I need this, I'm not sure, let me check.
Exactly. They are communicating, not performing grammar gymnastics. Fluency appears when you shift your focus from perfection to just connection.
So fluency doesn't mean speaking perfectly. It just means speaking quickly and simply enough to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Once that communication channel is open and fast, you can refine the grammar later. And that connects directly to step 10. Speak before you're ready.
This one feels so scary because it goes against every instinct a learner has. The feeling is always, I just need to study one more chapter, then I'll be ready.
But that thinking is completely backward. Confidence doesn't come before you speak. Confidence is the result of speaking. You have to give your brain a clear message. We are using English now.
Not later. Not when it's perfect. Now.
Right now in its current, messy, imperfect form.
Speaking of now, step 6 is maybe the easiest one to start doing immediately. Convert your daily life into active English practice.
This is all about using those moments when you're alone. It's often called self-talk, and it leverages your brain's working memory to turn the world around you into instant language output.
So give us some of those specific actionable habits.
Describe what you're doing right now, out loud. I'm cleaning the room. Make tiny predictions. I think it'll rain soon. Ask yourself questions. What do I need to do next?
I really like the idea of replying to English videos or debating with yourself. You read an article and you think, I don't really agree with that point, because those little moments add up.
They add up hugely. And to formalize that a bit, we get to step 7, create micro conversations with yourself.
This one might feel a little strange at first, but it's amazing practice for the back and forth rhythm of a real conversation.
All you do is create these short 20 or 30-second imagined dialogues in your head. Picture a common scenario. Ordering coffee, asking for directions, something you do all the time.
And you play both parts.
You play both parts. For example, the restaurant. How spicy would you like that? Oh, could you make it mild, please? I can't handle too much heat.
That's fantastic practice because it forces you to form a response sentence quickly, which is the exact skill you need. You're training your brain to anticipate and react.
And that leads perfectly into our last strategy, step 8, which is about reducing mother tongue interference, but doing it gradually.
Right. We are not saying you should force yourself to think in English all day long. That just leads to burnout.
It's a trap. Instead, you establish these little English-only windows during specific active moments in your day.
What kind of moments are we talking about?
Moments where language is tied to an action. When you're ordering something, when you're searching online, when you're making a decision or describing a problem to yourself.
So you're creating these small bubbles where English is the tool you use to do something.
Exactly. It reinforces the idea that English is the car you're driving, not just the car you're watching someone else drive.
Wow. This has been an incredibly practical deep dive. We started with that core frustration of understanding everything but being able to say nothing. The huge gap between passive and active English.
And we broke down the activation process into these 10 steps, grouped under 3 main ideas. First, training for speed with things like the 5-second recall and shattering.
Then forcing production with that 1 input equals 2 outputs rule. And finally, shifting your entire mindset away from perfection and toward usable everyday communication.
And the surprising thing, I think, is that fluency isn't about adding more knowledge. It's not about cramming more vocabulary. It's about retraining your brain for instant retrieval.
It's about building small daily habits that teach your brain to use English as a muscle that needs exercise, not a subject that just needs to be memorized.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, we've said over and over that speaking is a physical skill. It requires speed. So the question for you to think about is this. How does practicing something like the 5-second recall method or forcing yourself to do instant reaction drills, how does that change the way you view English?
Not as a subject to be mastered in a classroom somewhere down the line, but as a muscle that you can exercise right now in your own life to unlock the fluency you actually already have inside you.
That's the challenge. Stop just studying. Start activating that English today.
If today's lesson helped you understand English more clearly, then I truly invite you to stay connected with us. Your learning matters, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
So if you'd like to continue improving your English with simple, practical lessons, please consider subscribing to the channel. It genuinely encourages us and ensures you never miss the next helpful episode.
And if you feel comfortable, you can also share in the comments which habit or phrase made the biggest difference for you today. Your thoughts really do help us create better content for you.
Thank you for spending your time with us. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care, and keep learning with confidence.